We're grateful. I think like everybody that's already spoken, to have the season end last year for all of us. Nobody would have ever thought something like that could happen, and it did. And I think, here we are, almost a year later, just, excited to be on the practice field. And of course, with the season, literally about 4 weeks away, I know our guys are excited to just play anybody. But then to get this great opportunity to play in such a terrific venue that I've heard so much about, and of course have seen on television in the World Series, and what a great job you guys have done. But then to put on top of that, the great competition and two great conferences, and as you look through most of the polls where just about everybody's ranked in the top 10, obviously a huge challenge, I think, for us, and just excited to be a part of it. So thank you.
Coaches, I believe all of you guys have multiple kids from Texas. Just can you talk about Texas baseball and how important it is to recruit here? And do you think this will kind of give you guys a little bit, even more of a footprint here in the state?
Yeah, I think you always hope that. I think, the recruiting is the lifeblood of any program. And I think all of us, would say that we recruit nationally, and to chance, for our, not only our sport, but our program, to be, on this big of a stage, I think is great for all of us. And, to be in front of people that, may not see you, especially live, I think it's a great opportunity.
Mike, first of all, who will be your opponents for that weekend? Obviously, you're familiar with all these coaches, with all these teams, and what's the challenge of opening weekend for y'all?
Hey, Ben, we got TCU opening afternoon. I think we play in the middle game all 3 days, and Texas Tech day 2 on Saturday, and Texas on Sunday. And then what was the other?
You're familiar with all these coaches and all these teams, just the challenge of the weekend and the opponents you're facing.
Well, I think, echoing what everybody said, it's a huge opportunity, and certainly a huge challenge, I think, opening weekend. But as Dave's mentioned earlier, I mean, how could you say no to something like this? I mean, what a great opportunity for our guys, and 3 great programs, and as Schloss said earlier, I mean, not just for this year, but traditionally, teams that are in Omaha. We haven't played, I'm trying to think back, probably the last one of these 3 that we played, I think, might have been Texas Tech and Houston a few years back. But all great programs, and again, being the first weekend, I think it's super exciting.
In your team, you lost 2 guys, but obviously you returned the bulk of a team that was 16-1, and the pitching staff that's got a lot of arms that could really handle tournament play pretty well. Do you like the uniqueness of this challenge? Is obviously pretty unique, but for your team and the way you're built and your off and your pitching, do you think you're pretty well equipped for it?
Yeah, but I don't think we're any different than anybody else. I mean, but I understand what you're saying. But because of the draft, and getting another year back, from the NCAA, I think we're probably like a lot of people where we return a ton of guys, and we probably have more pitchers on the roster than normal. But we saw this coming a couple years out where we figured Doug and Gunner and those guys, this class, would hopefully be able to handle this, weekend a little better than maybe a younger team. And so thankfully it falls for the right year for us.
I look at this in 2 different ways in the middle of this pandemic. One, you guys all take one trip and get 3 premier opponents, so that lowers kind of your exposure, but it is also basically a road trip for everybody. What were your health concerns for your players and protocols going in?
I'll take it. We, when obviously when we made the decision to come, it was pre-COVID. But since I've had the conversation not only with our administration but many people. We always take one trip on the road. This year, I think we're fortunate that this is the trip. I think we're fortunate to be paired up with the Big 12, who similar conference, similar I think COVID protocols, and so that those things, don't seem to be as big of a maybe obstacle as if we were going somewhere else. And being able to get to the Dallas Fort Worth area, Arlington, much easier than getting to another location. So I think because of the year, this is probably the perfect trip for us.
And just to follow that up, Coach Bianco, do you know, are all the schools planning to basically be in a bubble accommodation, or are y'all planning to stay at the same place?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. Obviously, the schedule came out the other day, and I saw that there's no Governor's Cup this year, and that's a really big one for both of y'all every year. So the first question is, it's a two-parter. Just what are your thoughts on not being able to play that game in Pearl like you guys usually do? But then on the flip side, how exciting is it for you guys to still be able to take a trip like the one we're talking about here in February and to play the caliber opponents that you guys are scheduled to play?
Yeah, I think, obviously it's a disappointment for everybody, especially the fans, the fans of the Jackson area, and even, the fans in the southern part of the state that, every year we play that, there's, 8,000-9,000 people in the stadium. So, but, to play it where it's normally played in the schedule so deep into the season in May, a midweek game, a chance, not so much the playing of the game, but the travel that, it takes to get down there. I think both administrations just thought there was, too big of a risk to be traveling, on a bus 5+ hours, in the middle of the week, that deep into the conference play and towards the end of the season.
I've heard the word excitement and energy, of course, but tell me about evaluation going into a showcase like this, and given how your rosters are set up, what do you want to get from an evaluation standpoint, after these games are completed, given that you have a lot to work with and going against quality opponents as well?
I just feel that that the competition level the first weekend, as I think one of the coaches mentioned already, can expose you, very quickly. I think this weekend. I think that's maybe the difficult thing as a coach. I think the first 4 weeks for us is always the non-conference weeks, trying to figure it out, figure which guys are ready to play, tinkering with lineups and rotations, and which guys out of the bullpen. And that's, I think, what makes this such, not only are you playing really good competition, but you're playing at the first weekend, which I think where it's a bigger challenge, especially for the younger guys.
We've already mentioned a bunch, the quality of opponent in this first weekend, but is this kind of the best collection of teams you think you've ever started out your season against in your careers as coaching?
I think, of course, we've talked endlessly about the competition, but again, the first weekend, I don't know if we've ever opened up. We've opened up with some really good opponents. Last year, we opened up with number 1 Louisville here, but a collection of 3 teams, ranked in the top 10. Certainly a huge challenge for everyone.